Please excuse me, okay, my friends. Please excuse me because I'm having some problems here, but it's going to be okay. It's not a big deal. So, where is the Middle East? Where is the Near East, right? So, we're now in China, right? You see, so one of the things that I want you to do, my friends, is to look at your maps and figure out where everything in your world is located. At least get an idea of where, to some extent, in which continent, places are located. Of course, you know that. Most of you know that. But I just want to make sure that you do sort of concentrate on that. Okay, so we have here China, we have Thailand, Vietnam. This is China Sea, East China Sea, South Korea, North Korea, Japan, Mongolia, right? Nepal, India, Thailand. My sister-in-law is from Thailand. The Philippines, right? This is all, well, what do we call this? Right? We call this Far East, right? We call this Far East. What is the problem with that? What is the problem with that? The problem with that is that if you go from China, if you go from China, you come to the east, from China, you come to the east, you will hit what? You will hit the United States of America. So from a Chinese point of view, right, Middle East, right, would be somewhere in the middle of United States, right? And Far East, right, would be somewhere in Europe or so, right? That's from the Chinese perspective. So, from the American perspective, suppose we are in New York now, so we want to see where is our Middle East, right? Our Middle East is somewhere in Spain, North Africa, and Europe and so on and so forth, right? So what is it that I am trying to tell you here? I'm trying to ask you actually, from what perspective do we call the Middle East the Middle East, right? Suppose, right, your Middle East, and we're going to get to what is considered Middle East, right? Suppose your Middle East includes Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and so on and so forth, right? Suppose that is your Middle East. So it is this area, right? You see where it is, right? I cannot use the pen here. So it is from what perspective, east of what is Middle East? East of Europe, right, is Middle East. So from the perspective of whom do we consider Middle East a Middle East, right? From the perspective of Europe. So what is the difference between Middle East and Near East? Well, Near East is supposed to be this Eastern Mediterranean, right? That is the Near East, right? But sometimes, of course, we include Egypt in the Middle East, right? And then we think, wait, okay, so Egypt is also in the Middle East, whereas in point of fact, it's in Africa, right? And a good sort of section of its segment of its civilization in Egypt, right, had nothing to do with Islam and Islamic civilization, right? So I hope you're getting my point, right? So Middle East is a very problematic concept. It's a concept that was coined by Western sort of statesmen, right, in order to reflect, right, where was the so to speak, the cradle of Islam. So, and we know, we should know, right, the cradle of Islam, of course, is in Saudi Arabia, right? So now I want you to look at your map, my friends, right? I'm going to be asking you about major rivers and major mountains and all that, right? Predominantly in what the area that we are going to examine. So if we cannot call this area Middle East or Near East because it's a problematic concept, what can we call it? Okay, it's a problematic concept. Yeah, it's a modern colonial concept, right, my friends? And it's a concept that was actually coined at the beginning Middle East, at the beginning of the 19th century, right? The concept of Near East, excuse me, seems to have been established by the excuse me, British India Office. And you're asking, what is British India Office now, right? And we're going to get to that. British India Office started calling the region that I showed you, right, the Middle East, and we're going to see the sort of the renditions of Middle East on the map. Okay, my friend. So, who coined the concept of Middle East? Actually, it was an American naval strategist, right? The gentleman in front of you, Alfred Thayer Mahan, who used the term in 1902 to designate the area, listen to this, to designate the area between Arabia and India, right? Okay, so what is this colonial context? Why are they, what were they doing in 19? What were the Europeans doing in 19th and 20th century to be applying this term, right? Which is from their perspective, and therefore it's a biased term, right? It's not from the the people of Middle East now call the region Middle East. And you guys, this is like the most ridiculous thing that you can think of, right? Because here you are, like in Iraq, you're in Syria, you're like in Iran, and you say, I am in the Middle East. Are you kidding me? You're not in the Middle East. You're in the center of your own world, right? So, Middle East only has a reference from the Western European point of view. So, what is this colonial context, my friends, of the 19th century? Okay, in the 19th century, this whole thing starts actually from the 16th century, right? Voyages of discovery, right? In the voyages of discovery, first of all, the British and the Portuguese and these pioneers basically started from started from Western Europe, right? And they said, okay, if we just go straight, right, we will get to India, because they knew where India is, right? We will circle the globe and we will get to India, right? Lo and behold, where do they get? They get to United States of America, right? They get to United States of America, and they get to Canada, and they are so mistaken in where they think they have landed that they call the Native American population of the Americas, right? They call them Indians, right? So it's like, adding insult to injury. Right. Okay, finally, in the court from the 15th, 16th century onwards, they realized that, okay, they are in a different continent, right? They are in the continent of Americas, um, the two Americas, and they have not reached where they planned to reach, which was India. So finally, a fluke basically leads um, to uh, to the ships that were trying to make this voyage of discovery to get to, right? This is Spain and this is Portugal, right? To they wanted to go on voyages of discovery, and the winds here are very strong, right? These are the winds that block the Mediterranean. Sort of, this is the front that blocks the Mediterranean, and we're going to get to that. Anyway, these winds that moved the ships that were going here, they pushed them, and they went here, right? They went here, and once they went to, they sort of rounded the northwest of Africa, right? Then the rest was easy. Well, easy. It's a long trip. It's a long, long trip, right? And and this is here, Cape of Good Hope, and the name betrays a lot, right? Cape of Good Hope, and you navigate, right, Africa, and finally you get to this very, very important part of the world, but most importantly to India, right? To the Persian Gulf, right, and to India, right? Okay, so you get to India, the Portuguese, the Dutch, the Portuguese. This start already in the 16th century, right? Voyages of discovery, 16th century, the 16th century, right? And the Europeans have already basically come to the east. So why do you come to the east? Because from age immemorial, they realize that the east, right, has a lot of wealth, right? That India and China, right, and China here, right, has a lot of wealth, right? So the British settled on the Indian subcontinent, right? By the 17th, 18th century, right, they had basically colonized most of India, right? The the British. Now, okay, this is say by the 18th century. Now, but other things are happening, right? Okay, I talked to you about the context of European colonialism, and the most important thing to know about European and later on American colonialism and imperialism, my friends, is that they looked to the east, right, to raise the level of their civilization. The Greeks did that, the Romans did that, the Europeans did that. Renaissance, for instance, was made possible only with the dyes, the artistic sort of production of the Renaissance of the 16th century in Europe, right, was only possible with the dyes that came from this part of the world, right? But it was not just the dyes that came. Incest came from this part of the world. All kinds of spices came from this part of the world. Silk came from this part of the world. So quite a bit of riches, right? And as I said, industrial revolution that takes place in the in the 19th century. Was also sustained by India and the regions that the regions that have produced this wealth, right? For instance, industrialization. Oh, sorry, you guys. Okay, so yes, the Renaissance was sustained by it. The Industrial Revolution was sustained by it, and all, right? So much riches was in the East, right? That, well, I mean, they're going back and forth to the East, and they're creating colonies not only in the East, but as you will see in Africa, and of course the Middle East as well, not only in India and the regions that you see. This is all a British colonial sort of expanse, right? So now, to give you an example of what was happening. So remember, you guys, this is very easy to learn. In 1789, right, a revolution takes place in France, right, and that is the French Revolution. When the French Revolution takes place at the end of the 18th century, right, the British are already in India, right, and they're getting like their goods and riches and whatnot. They have colonized India, right? So in 1798, right, this is the Napoleonic sort of revolution, right? And Napoleon comes and wants to conquer Egypt. Why does it want to conquer Egypt? It thinks that, okay, if we are in Egypt, right, we can much easier go to India, become a problem for India, and try to go to India and compete with the French. Of course, the British didn't want that, right? The British didn't want that. So in 1801, a war takes place, my friend. A war takes place not between the Egyptians and, say, the Libyans, not between the Egyptians and the Syrians, no, between the French and the British, right, in 1798, over what? Over Egypt, right? 1801, the French are defeated in this sort of battle, right? But nevertheless, their um, their wealth, right? They bring, well, they use actually Egyptian wealth, right? And they stay in Egypt. They don't leave Egypt. The French don't leave Egypt. When they come to Egypt, the French, right? When Napoleon comes to Egypt, right? It starts documenting. Napoleon starts documenting everything that there was. In terms of art, architecture, mummies, that's how all the European museums were filled, right, from with the riches from the East, right, and from Africa, right. So the French came there to stay, the British came there to stay, and together they built what? They built the Suez Canal, right? They built the Suez Canal shortly after this period. They built the Suez Canal. Why do they build the Suez Canal? And what is the Suez Canal? The Suez Canal is the canal that we're gonna see these and know the names of these. This is the Red Sea, my friends, right? This sea here, right? It's called the Red Sea. So what they did, is they connected the Red Sea to the Mediterranean, right? They connected the Red Sea to the Mediterranean. Yeah, Red Sea to Mediterranean. I'm sorry. Red Sea to Mediterranean, right? What was that good? Why was that better, right, than our 17th century voyages? Because it was a much shorter way from Europe to the East, right? Instead of going all this way, right, all this way to get to the East, right? You go, why? You go, this is Europe, right? You go from here through the Mediterranean, through the Red Sea, and here, my friends, you have to write these down. This is the Gulf of Aden, or the Strait of Aden. I want you to recognize these straits. Why are these straits important? These straits are important because they can be blocked, right? And they can prevent communication. So what are the most important straits, right, in this part of the world? I mean, in the world, actually, in the whole world. Let's see. Okay, so what are the important straits? Okay, one is, as I said, the Gulf of Aden, right? One, the Gulf of Aden, the Strait of Aden. Then another one is what? Another one is Bosphorus and Dardanelles. Okay, Bosphorus, this I show you. This little opening in, okay, I have to make it even, yeah, this little opening, my friends, look at this little opening, yeah, the first one, right, the first one. We still have to come to the second one. This body of water is called the Black Sea. This body of water is called the Caspian Sea. This body of water is called the Persian Gulf. This part here connecting North Africa to Europe is Strait of Gibraltar. Gibraltar. Okay, I have to double check this, you guys. But it is, the name comes of, actually from an Arabic term meaning Jabal, which means mountains, Tariq, which was the one of the North African generals that conquered Spain and created, thereby began 5 centuries of Islamic rule in Spain, my friends, right? So Gibraltar, I'm sorry, this is called Gibraltar. Oh, sorry. Okay. Gibraltar, which is the anglicized version of Jabal of Tariq. Tariq is the name of a North African person, a general who conquered Spain, right, in 711. We'll get to all of that for now. But, okay, so these are the bodies of water, and of course this is the Mediterranean Sea, right? Black Sea, and this sea here, my friend, is the Aegean Sea, right? Now I want you to go, this is Aegean, right? Aden, Aden, Caspian, Caspian, Black Sea, Red Sea, right? Red Sea. Okay, so you have Persian Gulf, you have Gulf of Aden, you have Persian Gulf, you have what connects Black Sea, what connects Black Sea, what goes to Black Sea, the strait that goes to Black Sea, right? It's called Bosphorus, right? It's called Bosphorus. Okay, so my friends, so we continue. So this is very important. This little strait here, right, is called Bosphorus, and it connects the Black Sea, right, to this little sea here, which is called the Sea of Marmara, right? And this other strait here, right, that comes to the Aegean Sea, I have to make this smaller, right? So here we go. This body, okay, this body of water here, my friends, is called the Aegean, Aegean, Aegean Sea. So, and this strait that connects the Sea of Marmara to the Aegean Sea, this strait is called Dardanelles. So, two straits here, very, very important straits there, my friends. All of these straits are extremely important in our contemporary world. Why is Bosphorus and Dardanelles, why are they important? Because there usually is a very powerful sort of empire here in I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. There usually is a very strong empire here from the early modern period to the modern period, and early modern we call it 1500 basically, my friends. 1500 to 1800 is early modern, and 1800 to 2000 is modern, and anything after 2000 they call it postmodern, right, my friends? So, okay, so there is usually a very important, in this case, as I mentioned to you, the Russians, right, who always want, because Russia basically is a land-blocked sort of expansive region of Asia, right? So, and Russia wants access to warm waters, right? So Russia wants to get to the Mediterranean, to go, to the south, and get to wherever it is that it wants to go. They can come this way. Yes, I am watching the clock, my friends. So okay, so they want access to warm waters, and in the Russians, in fact, in World War I, could very well, right, close up these two. I mean the powers, the British, the French, and whatnot. They could close this sort of straits and not let Russia to get into the Mediterranean Sea. The Gibraltar is also important. Why is it important? Because it's the outlet of the Mediterranean Sea. You have to imagine, my friends, when these straits were being made, for instance, there must have been a grand waterfall, right? Where the waters of the Atlantic Ocean would get into the Mediterranean, right? And I talked about the significance of the Suez Canal, and of course the Persian Gulf. Why is Persian Gulf important? You know why it is important, right? Because all the oil and gas, a good portion, a substantial portion of the oil and gas of the world is coming from this region. So, my friends, okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. Um, let's go back to, and I don't know why I cannot get my PowerPoints back. Bear with me, please.